be rolling out the sprint. Flex start, flex end, where the items need to align. Which one of the is not a property of flex container to align item? Odd man out. Make it fast.
Flex direct.
Display.
So we have flex flow. We have flex direction. We have also justify content, align content. Odd man, the property which is not there for flex container is display. What is the default direction of flex direction attribute? Default value?
Row.
It will take row basis. It will go with a flow layout from row. So moving on to the last layout, grid layout. CSS module defines two-dimensional grid-based layout optimized for UI design. So we are going to create grid-based layout, but in the form of 2 dimension. Children of the grid container can be positioned into arbitrary slot. Second point is very important. The difference between flexbox layout and grid layout is in the second point. Let's assume I have a container div. Inside I have some 6 div. So whichever I have created. So the children of the grid container can be positioned into any slot, any arbitrarily in the flexible or fixed predefined layout grid. So there is no uniform row and column division. According to the slot I want to place my child element, I can able to place. Grid container establishes a new grid formatting context for its content. Whatever the arbitrarily start or new grid formatting, I will show you in a demo. But the slight difference between your flexbox layout and grid layout is here also it is going to divide into row and column fashion, but it will not be in an ordered way. Wherever I want to place any of my children of the grid container, any children, wherever I want to place, I can able to place based on the layout I am defining in the top. So grid lines are either horizontal or vertical between grid lines. So one cell and another cell, if you want, you can add either horizontal or vertical. Let's assume if you have a page where you are dividing here and I want one line in between, an horizontal line, or I want a vertical line between this section and this section, I can able to add. Grid cell is the smallest unit of grid that can be referenced whenever if you are positioning a grid item. CSS grid layout. So you have to use the property grid container display is grid. Sometime back, instead of grid, what was the property we have provided?
Flex.
So sometime back, we have used flex property. Now we are using grid property. On seeing this grid layout, on what fashion it has been placed? Any random guesses? On looking into this output layout, can you tell me in which basis it has been?
Width.
So let's assume the top is a header block. So here we have header, here we have the footer, and in between, let's assume I have an outer. You have to relate this grid only with the help of semantic tag. I have my nav, I have my main content, and I have my sidebar. So header and footer has been taken 100% of width. Whereas the next row I have divided into 3 sections, and each sections I have placed the respective block. So if I have header, if I have footer, and I have nav, main, and sidebar, so you have to specify in your style sheet whichever the block, whichever the places in my grill, what content I need to place. So that flexibility will be provided by the grid layout. I will show you in a demo. Let's take this demo. So we have a content. So inside body, I have header, we have article, we have nav, div, and footer. So I'm dividing my page into 5 different sections. So the initial part is header tag, header, article, nav, one more page division, and the last one is footer. So each attribute, for each HTML tag, we have called with CSS ID attribute. So we are calling the CSS and we are mapping the respective CSS style. For header, we are calling page header, and here we are naming as main article, main nav, side advertisement, and page footer. Shall we discuss on style sheet?
Yes, ma'am.
Requesting all of you to pay attention. So if you take your body, so I don't have any container. So we are using body as a container because inside body, we have all other HTML elements. So all my childrens are placed in where? My body is gonna to act like a parent container. Is that clear?
Yes.
Shall I continue with body? So here inside my body type at the property which I want to add for grid container layout is display : grid. Please look into line number 12, 13, 14 are very important. So this is how I'm going to place my slot. This you can guess. If you take grid template areas. So grid template area specifies the named areas which I want to space it. So if you take, I'm going to play 3 different areas. Can you look at this double quotes? So this is my first area, this is my second area, and this is my third area. So what we are doing in first area?
First row is header.
Only for
first.
header. And in my second area, I'm gonna to place a nav bar, an article, and an ads. All these were my style sheet. And the last area, I'm gonna to place only footer. Grid template rows, 600 pixel into FR means available free space. Column 20 into 1 free space of 15. Each grid will have a gap of 1.5. So VW stands for
Vertical width.
vertical height. I have given this various property of calculating this width and height. So depend upon the content where I am having the default is width into multiplied with 1.5. So all my header, footer, article, nav, I'm adding with padding and background color. These are the regular CSS property. So under page header, I'm going to give the grid area name as header. Under page footer, I'm going to give the grid area name as footer. So here article. So everywhere I'm giving the name for my CSS reference. I'm giving the grid area name. Wherever I have site ads, I'm giving the grid area name as ADS. So when I execute, automatically no, the main will be divided into grid, where each grid in the respective cell, the respective section gets added. So entire body, I'm having three different sections. The first section is entirely header. And here in the same order, in which order we have placed. So I should have nav followed with article, followed with ads. And the bottom, all the three sections will be covered with my footer. So line number 12 plays major role. So again, I'm explaining in my body. So my container, I'm gonna to make all my element as grid container. So whatever the element I'm having inside my body container, I'm gonna to make it as a grid. So this is very important. This is mandatory to make your grid container layout. So grid will automatically generate what? Block level container. So by default, once it creates block, every time inline items will be placed accordingly. So tell me why it is 60 pixel, one free space and 60 pixel. What it mean?
Ma'am, I think the distance between two rows should be of one free space.
The gap between two columns may be one
Now
free.
that we are providing with grid gap. Here we are calculating a row and
Rows.
column. Any mere guesses? So if you take column, we have 60, one free space 60, which is for rows. And the gap between one grid and another grid, we have specified with grid space, grid gap. And what I have to fill, that we are specifying with my grid area name. So all the grid areas which we specified with each CSS property, we are calling here. Instead of any random guesses? Think we are in the last topic of the day. So what is happening when I give auto?
And the space was equally divided between three rows.
I'm equally dividing into for rows as well as columns.
Is it spaced between margin and
Okay, 1 second.
margin?
For example, 1 second. Let me give 20 pics space 60 pics 20 pics. I'm talking about row. Let me give row. And how many rows we have? 3 rows. 20, 60. Make it 30 pixel, 40 pixel, 30 pixel. And I want all of you to try this and give me the output of this code. Take a snap of it, or I will not stop my screen share. So try this HTML code, and this is my CSS. This is my parent container, and these are all my elements, child items. You have to enable display grid property. So you modify all the areas. You can give one free space or two free space, or you can give it in percentage or pixel. Gap between each grid is default width into 2. That is what the calculation of VW, vertical width. And the container components will take font size, padding, background color, and alignment of text.